and welcome to Book Witches with a B. I'm Orja.
And I'm Colleen.
And in our podcast, we do a deep dive into some of our favorite books using our degree backgrounds. I studied literature.
I studied sociology with a minor in literature and cinema.
So buckle up and enjoy the ride. Welcome. That's the Hunger Games. We're not reading the Hunger Games for season 2. If you can't tell from what's resting behind me, we are reading Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros.
We're very excited. I'm so stoked about this.
Yes. In true fashion, I have been reading the book, and Colleen's already listened to books 1 and 2.
That is the plus of audiobook, is I feel like you can get through a lot more, like, quicker. I'm not a fast physical reader, so.
Neither am I. It's all good. So let's head into our first ever chapter recap for the Fourth Wing series.
Yay!
Chapters 1 through 5. All right, so chapter 1, we are introduced to Violet Sorrengail, a 20-year-old who's been training her entire life to enter the scribe quadrant of Basgiath War College, which is the military academy of a kingdom called Navarre. We find out that Violet is the daughter of General Sorrengail, who made the decree 6 months ago at this point that Violet will be joining the Dragon Rider Quadrant, because General Sorrengail is a dragon rider, as is Mira, who is Violet's older sister. We open up on a kind of an argument between Mira and General Sorrengail. So Mira's arguing that Violet is too fragile to be a rider and that she'll surely die. But General Sorrengail doesn't listen and insists that Violet has to train and become a rider because she's a rider herself. We learn that Mira's concerns are extremely valid because Violet had a fever as a child, or her mom was sick with the fever when she was pregnant with Violet.
Yeah. I think it was when her mom was pregnant with her. She had like a fever and she came out
very weak. So basically, Violet's body is extremely breakable, like her muscles, her ligaments, her bones, extremely fragile. Interestingly, her hair leaches the color. It like leaches to like white at the ends, and so she has this rather striking like brown to like white hair that hangs off her head. We learn that Violet's father and brother have both passed away. Her dad was a scribe, which is why Violet had been training to be a scribe her whole life. And her brother, Brennan, we get a name for the brother, not for the father. Brennan was also a dragon rider, and he was killed by the leader of the Treacherous rebellion. So he's no longer with us. We also get like a really small tidbit that Navarre is at war with the bordering kingdom called Poromil, and they have griffin riders. So we have a little bit of dragon versus griffin rider thing going on here.
Very interesting.
So basically, Violet's mother, General Sorrengail, is like, yeah, tough luck. She is going to join the Riders Quadrant, and that's the end of it. If she tries to run, I will just drag her back by that stupid hair of hers. It's very violent. And so Mira helps Violet pack. It's so violent. Mira helps Violet pack for conscription day. She basically is like, you can't take a backpack that's like 30 pounds. You're gonna fall off of the parapet, which we'll get to in a second. And so she's like throwing out all of the books that Violet, the scribe, has tried to pack with her. She gives her a vest made out of dragon scales to protect her because the Dragon Riders Quadrant is extremely violent. And she also gives her rider's boots so she won't slip when she's crossing the parapet, and a knife to smuggle in, which we'll talk about in a couple of chapters. Finally, Mira tells Violet to find Dane Atos, a friend from childhood, once she gets across the parapet and into the Riders Quadrant. She also warns her to stay away from Xaden Ryerson, who is the son of the Treacherous rebellion leader who killed Brennan. The reason that Violet needs to stay away from him is because General Sorrengail killed Xaden's father, and so he's going to want to murder Violet immediately. While they're in line for the parapet, which is an 18-foot wide bridge 200 feet above a ravine that connects the main Basgiath War College to the Dragon Riders Quadrant, that all candidates have to cross to become Dragon Rider cadets. They meet Xaden Ryerson, actually, and he's described as really hot, so that's exciting.
Shocker. He's attractive.
Yeah, shocker.
Bad guy's attractive.
That guy's attractive. Will be a running theme. We also meet Dylan and Rhiannon, who has the wrong boots on, so Violet trades one boot with Rhiannon because she doesn't want her to die. And we learn that the parapet is a test for balance for when you're a dragon rider. You have to be able to balance high up on a very narrow thing. So this is just like basically the entire time at Basgiath War College is going to be test after test for dragon riding. Chapter 1 ends with Dylan falling to his death. Dun dun dun.
Which is heartbreaking, just a tidbit, because how we're introduced to Dylan is his mother holding him,
Yeah.
sobbing, trying to convince him to go to
Right,
literally.
like, please don't go. And he's like so excited. He's got a girl waiting at home for him. He's got like a ring on a chain around his neck, and he's like, can't believe we get to do this. And then he falls to his death. Kind of really sets the tone for the rest of the books for those of you who are reading for the first time.
It does, yeah.
So chapter two, Violet walks across the parapet. In terms of a summary recap, not so much happens, but we're definitely going to dissect this later. We meet Jack Barlow, who basically immediately has it out for Violet. She looks behind her once she's, I think, about, maybe halfway across the parapet and sees Jack throw another candidate off the bridge to their death. And he kind of looks forward at her and is like, I'm coming for you. And yeah, that happens. So she's basically racing against like torrential rain and wind, and Jack Barlow at her back, this fragile 20-year-old. She slips and hurts her knee, and she's got to get up and keep going. And just as she makes it off the parapet, Jack catches up with her, but she turns around and, like a total badass, holds that knife to his private areas. Very sensitive area of the man.
This is one of my favorite scenes of this entire book.
It's so
by the
good.
way.
It's so incredible. Since she's technically made it off the parapet, she is now a cadet officially. And according to the Codex, which is like a handbook of rules for dragon riders, cadets cannot kill each other when there are superiors present and everyone's in formation. And since everyone is technically in formation, Jack can't kill her. It's against the Codex. But since he's technically not made it off the parapet yet, basically one of the superiors waiting to check in new cadets is like, you could kill him. And unfortunately, thanks to her mercy, she lets Jack off the parapet, officially becoming a cadet, and he vows to one day murder her.
It's got a real interesting vendetta.
Yeah,
For
like why?
seemingly
Just
no reason.
why? Anyway.
Immediately so aggressive.
Immediately. Chapter 3. So Violet finds Rhiannon, and Rhiannon's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you did this for me. They're like fast friends immediately. And she finds Dane Atos, who we learn that she's had a crush on. She's been nursing a fine crush on this man. He sees
He's also
that
hot.
he's also hot, yes. He sees that she is hurt, and he's also very surprised to see her there because she was supposed to join the scribes quadrant.
Yeah.
And he's like, what are you doing here? You're gonna die. Resounding theme for the entire book. Like, entire book. Anyways, he takes her to his room to wrap her knee, and like she's feeling nauseous too from the whole thing with Jack. So he takes her away from the crowd to like calm her down and wrap her knee, and he's like, no one here can see you be weak. So you need to like not do this in front of people. And then he's also trying to smuggle her out of the Dragon Riders quadrant into the Scribe quadrant. She's like, I can't do it. My mom said that even if I leave, she's gonna like drag me back to the writer's quadrant. He tries to push back on her, but he finally is like, oh, okay, like you're telling the truth. Fine, they go back to formation. Violet finds Rhiannon again and is introduced to a girl named Tara. They stand in the courtyard with the other parapet survivors in front of a man named Commandant Panchek. Add that to the list of our characters. He announces that 301 of the candidates who crossed the parapet survived. 67 of them died, including poor Dylan. We also learn that Commandant Panchek wants Violet's mom's job. And then he also wants General Melgren's job after that.
He wants all the jobs.
He wants all the jobs. He wants to be in super duper power. It's unlikely because General Melgren's dragon gives Melgren the ability to see a battle's outcome before it happens. So we learn here with this tidbit that magic in this world is tied to dragons. While their information, a senior wing leader named Naira informs them to take up formation behind their squad leader when their names are called. Rhiannon and Violet are both called to Dane's squad, section, and wing. However, Xaden informs them that Dane's squad will switch with someone named Aura Benhaven's squad, putting Violet and Rhiannon effectively into fourth wing. They said it, which is Xaden's wing.
Which is bad because he wants to kill her.
It's bad. He wants to kill her.
And so he gets a lot of access to her now.
He's her leader. He literally has all the access to her now.
He does, yeah.
During this gathering, chapter 3 ends with a bang, let me tell you. During this gathering, 8 dragons emerge from below the cliffs, flying over the candidates. One of the candidates flees in fear because these dragons are monstrously huge and terrifying, and the dragon lights him on fire.
Yep.
We get this ginormous navy-colored dragon come and land, and it like makes eye contact with Violet for a moment before looking away. During this whole thing, Violet's like, "Don't run, you're gonna die. Everything's fine, you're gonna die." That's how chapter 3 ends. Chapter 4 begins, I think the next day. Violet stands in silent formation with the other riders in the courtyard, donning a black uniform, which is the riders' black.
Badge of black.
Their leaders take roll, and the first years are sent to their classes. Dane checks in on Violet, and Violet asks him why her squad was moved from second wing to fourth wing.
Fourth wing.
Can we just do that every time fourth wing is mentioned?
100% every time. We have to.
They said it.
It happens so much.
It happens a lot.
Insufferable.
Dane tells her it's because Xaden Ryerson wants Violet dead, but we already knew this, but Dane is also very scared about it. We also learn that the navy blue dragon that looked at Violet the day before is Xaden Ryerson's dragon. Yeah, right. Very vicious dragon named Stegale. We love dragons. Would I die? Probably. Would I be like Dylan running across the parapet? Absolutely.
Yeah, 100%. I'd be like, I'm getting to my dragon.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah. Violet wonders what Dane's signet is. Signet is the special ability that a rider gains from their dragons. This is again that magic tied to the dragons. He tells her that he can read a person's recent memories, and he reassures Violet that Xaden will not go outside of Codex rules to kill her. So there's certain times when Dragon Rider cadets are safe at Basgiath College. It's when they're in like formal formation, in the presence of their leaders, and I believe when they're asleep. You're not supposed to.
Sleeping.
Yeah, you can't attack a fellow Dragon Rider cadet when they're sleeping.
And you can't attack anyone in your own squad.
Yes, very important.
Tis incredibly important.
Incredibly important.
Your wing can, but your squad cannot.
Yes, not your direct squad. So, we'll go into that in world building, like the formations.
Just giving a little tidbit there.
Yeah. So even though he can't go outside of Codex rules to kill her, as Violet's walking to class, Xaden is watching her from a distance and then apparently like kind of follows her. And she's like, what? Chapter 5. Violet attends her first battle brief with Professor Devera. The professor discusses a drift of griffins and their riders attacking the eastern wing of the Navarian army the night before. She wants to see what questions the class would ask about the attack. This is like battle briefs, battle strategy, simulation sort of thing. So they're using like real non-classified information for the first year dragon riders and for all your dragon riders to like train them in strategy basically. Violet tells Rhiannon to ask about the altitude of the village, but the professor knows that it's Violet's question, so she asks her to elaborate on it. Violet claims that the time it took the squad of riders is suspiciously quick, and the professor points out that this is because one of the dragons in the wing sensed the faltering ward, and so they flew out quickly and helped minimize casualties. Xaden enters the class and claims the Griffin Riders were looking for something, raising the question of what they wanted in that ward so badly. The professor reiterates that in battle briefs, they only learn which questions to ask so the riders have a chance of coming home alive. No other questions. No, but why?
Why is not allowed?
Why is it
This is
not allowed?
very common military. Why is not allowed?
Yeah. Yep.
Just
hmm And then later, Violet joins a sparring session led by Professor Emiterio. She agrees to help Rhiannon with history classes if Rhiannon will help her with hand-to-hand combat. As we know, Violet is very fragile. As they're watching the sparring sessions, good old Jack Barlow breaks the neck of a first year and kills him. That's the second murder for Jack Barlow. I think we should keep a running count.
I think this man wants a body, like an actual body count.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Then Rhiannon enters the wing and defeats another first year named Tynan pretty quickly. And then finally, Violet is called to the sparring ring with a girl named Imogen who has pink hair. And Imogen breaks Violet's arm and dislocates her shoulder. The end of chapter 5, which brings us.
Imogen is also a year ahead
Yes,
of Violet. I'm pretty
thank
sure.
you. A year ahead of Violet. And that brings us to the end of our chapter recap. To world building. So, world building. But we have a lot to discuss with world building. Unlike ACOTAR, where we do get a lot of lore dump, but it's also not a lot of specifics. I feel like because we're in it's a military school.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of like military stuff happening. We get so much information in the first 5 chapters. It's insane.
We meet an insane amount of people, like immediately dragons, griffins, like 3 wars.
Yeah.
Like there's so much in the first like chapter even. Like it's a lot.
I think that it's important to talk about the rebellion because it kind of, it's brought up immediately. It's huge plot point, and the conscription of cadets and the different quadrants.
Yeah.
So let's take a step back. We have 4 quadrants. The scribes, the healers, the infantry, which is the dragon riding portion of like the military, and then the dragon riders who are like the superior.
The cool kids. Yeah. I mean they have dragons, that's fair.
Yeah. It is the Dragon Rider quadrant is volunteers only, except for the children of the rebellion who are forced to conscript as dragon riders, and we'll get more into that in later episodes, I think, where they go a little bit more into like the details of all of that. But
they are the only forced conscripts. I think everywhere else can have some, not forced, but like kind of different. But like this one is like you volunteer. Like if you're coming to this, you're putting yourself in danger. It's a volunteer thing. Yeah. Everyone who is there wants to be there.
Yeah, except for Violet.
She probably has more in common at this point with the rebellion children than she does with anyone else.
Yep. Plus Xaden's really hot. That's part of world building.
He is canonically hot.
Yeah. Yes. Do we have a description of him? Okay, so this is our first description of Xaden. You ready for this, Sorrengail? Rhiannon asks, moving forward. The black-haired rider snaps his gaze to mine, turning fully toward me, and my heart thunders for all the wrong reasons. A rebellion relic, curving in dips and swirls, starts at his bare left wrist, then disappears under his black uniform to appear again at his collar, where it stretches and swirls up his neck, stopping at his jawline. Oh, bleep, I whisper, and his eyes narrow as if he can hear me over the howl of the wind that rips my secured braid. Sorrengail? He steps toward me and I look up and up. Good gods, I don't even reach his collarbone. He's massive. He has to be more than 4 inches over 6 feet tall.
Oh boy. I know he's tall. I don't think I ever pictured him that tall.
He's like as tall as Rhysand.
Like, he's a tall boy.
Legitimately.
I always picture him as like 5'10" to 6 foot. Like, in my head, he's in that range.
Yeah, no.
It's also like just absolute giant. I know someone that's probably close to his size, and now that I'm thinking about it, that's really interesting.
It's so tall.
It is so tall.
It's so tall. So yes.
Also, tattoos. Hot.
Tattoos, yeah, the tattoo that literally goes all the way up.
He's here up to his back. I mean, come on. Rebecca knew it. Rebecca was like, if this is your type,
yeah, this is your type, you're welcome.
100%.
And he's a bad boy because he's got a rebellion relic.
He might kill you.
He might kill you.
Because Violet weirdly is.
Yeah, she is.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah.
Let's talk about magic in the world. I'm going to give this over to you, Colleen, because you have more information than me.
Like I said, we'll get more into this like situation, more about the magic. You kind of like learn it as Violet goes through and learns it as well. She knows, I think, probably more than most people because she is like her mother, the dragon rider, her family has seen it. But so there's wards, which are like magical words. Clearly, we learned that the dragons can like sense them, so they're connected to the dragons. We don't really know how they started or why, but they're related to dragon magic. Pretty much anything in this world, like pretty much the dragons have magic and share it with humans, essentially. And once you get a dragon, you get your magic, and then there's signets, and each person has a different signet. There's a lot of different kinds, and there are like repetitive signets. Some are more rare than others. I don't think we know Dane's yet. I don't think we know Ryerson's yet.
We do know Dane's. Dane can see recent memories. He can see the recent memories of people.
He has to touch you for it. So there's like a couple of different kinds of like memory readers. We'll get into that. But his is like he has to like touch. I think it says specifically the temples, but I think it's just he has to touch you. To be able to like read your like recent thoughts kind of thing, essentially. That's his signet. We learn about General Milgren's one where he can like see the outcome of any battle, which is why he's at where he's at. I think we learn about her mom's at this point. She controls storms, which is really interesting if you think about the fact that there was a major raging storm that happened while she was on the parapet and then immediately stopped once everyone was off the parapet. But we're not going to get into that just yet, but a little tidbit about that.
I'm shook. I did not make that connection. What?
I did not. I wish I could say I made that on my own. I am chronically online. That's something that I saw, but once it like stuck in my brain, I couldn't unthink about it afterwards.
Crazy.
She definitely could have made it stop, or she could have made it happen. We don't really know. Mm-hmm. So like basically, there's a lot of different ways of this magic. There's not like one. Like there's psychic magic almost. There's physical magic. There's like elemental magic essentially. So there's a lot of different things. It's not like one type of magic, and then there's also like lesser magics that they talk about. So like they can unlock doors. Like I think we know this at this point. If not, this is kind of a just interesting thing. So once you get a dragon, you can use like ballpoint, but you can like write without touching it. Essentially, it seems like you use these like special like forever writing pens, but like first years have to use quills, and that's lame. So like that's one of the things that they all talk about. They're like, I'm so excited to use this pen, which I think it's kind of like the dragon is less excited about the dragon.
Well, dragons are terrifying in this world.
So I know in theory, we don't have to get into this quite yet. I know in theory this was supposed to be scary. I don't know if I would be that scared. I would be so excited.
I know. Honestly, I hate that about myself because like I'm a scaredy cat. I'll admit it.
Yeah.
But I don't think I would be scared either. I think I would be too excited.
No.
Maybe that's arrogant.
I'd like normal reptiles. Like I love snakes. I have a picture of a snake in my office. It's a well-known fact about me. So like I love reptiles and snakes and those kinds of things. So like I think I'd be like, it's a dragon.
Yeah.
I do know there is that thing. So but not like if you stay away from other people's dragons. Like dragons tolerate one person.
Yeah.
And they're bonded and they don't tolerate anyone else.
Yeah.
I think that's like pretty apparent in the beginning of this. Like that's just kind of a known thing in this world of like, be careful. You got your dragon, don't interact with anyone else's. Don't they are ruthless. They did,
yes, they did kill that one cadet who was scared and ran.
Yeah, don't run away from a dragon.
Yeah.
It's very actually animalistic if we're really getting into that. It's kind of magic related. Yeah, so basically we learn more about that as we go along and kind of how those manifest and how that works. But for now, that's all we know.
Yes. And then obviously, like, I mean, there's dragons. We know that's a thing, and we know that there's griffins. Griffins are
which we don't know a lot about, but we know that they exist and that they can't fly at very high altitudes.
Yes.
Dragons can fly higher than griffins.
Yes. I wonder at this point in time, and I'll go ahead and say this, like, I read this entire series, but it's almost like I'm reading it for the first time again now because I'm paying so much more attention. So, at this point, like, I don't understand how griffins could even be a threat to dragons when dragons seem so, they're huge and they have like indestructible scales and they can breathe fire. So, like, tell me how griffins pose a threat. And we'll learn.
I was curious about that as well. I remember being like, okay, I think I just assumed they were like really big, which I think I would be more terrified of a griffin personally than I ever would be of a dragon.
100%.
Birds terrify me. They're just big birds. They're big furry birds.
Yeah, essentially. And then the military formations.
What was it? Oh no, flame, claw, tail, and wing.
And wing. Okay.
Are the main sections. Yeah, so flame, claw, tail, and wing.
Great. And then in those sections, then you have those are divided even further. So you have, like, for the wing section, you have first, second, third, and fourth wing.
Fourth wing. Fourth wing.
Fourth wing. And then
I don't know why we're turning into Schmidt from New Girl.
I don't know. It's so funny.
We are.
Because we are. And then within those sections, you have the squads within those.
Yeah. So. Which I think, judging by the structure, it's usually people in your year that you came in with, so that's your squad. Mm-hmm. And like that's important because you can kill people in your wing, can't kill people in your squad. Yeah. So it like comes into like a, gosh, why can't I think of it? So like, Rhiannon and Violet can't kill each other.
Not that they would.
But they cannot kill each other. Yeah. But Jack Barlow, who is not in their squad.
Yes. So. Lucky for him, I guess.
Honestly, yeah, lucky for him. Bad for Violet. Wonderful for Jack.
Really bad for Violet.
I think he would kill her anyway, to be honest with you.
I don't think I think so as well.
Even if it's against the Codex, which is the whole thing.
He just hates her.
Codex is important. It's important and not all at the same time. It's kind of wild.
It is wild. This is a really brutal, ruthless world that we are in for this series. So
this book is violent. It is very violent.
Yes.
Not graphically violent, but violent.
But like very violent. Yeah. All right. I think that brings us to the end of the world building. Woohoo! Next up, I thought it would be important to list all of the characters because there's a lot of characters in this series.
Yes.
So, I have them written down. So I'm going to go over them. Colleen, let me know if I miss anyone.
I will do it. Honestly, we're going to. There's so many people. And there's even more later.
Yeah. But yeah. So obviously we have Violet Sorrengail, our main character. We have her older sister. Yeah, Queen, indeed. Her older sister, Mira, who is a lieutenant and no longer, she's like graduated Basgiath and she's a lieutenant in the Riders Quadrant now. We have General Sorrengail, who we do find out her first name is Lilith, based on a quote in the beginning of one of the chapters, which we'll touch upon later because it's a very interesting quote. We have Brennan, who is the deceased oldest child of the Sorrengail family, the brother. We have the father, whose name I don't think we get, maybe ever.
I don't think if we do, I don't know what it is. I don't think we ever get it, which is really interesting. Yeah. Actually, they always refer to him as Dad or the Scribe.
Yeah. We have Rhiannon, Violet's BFF.
Also Queen.
We've got Jack Barlow.
Oof. Boo.
Boo. We have poor Dylan, who I wanted to mention because what a tragic first death of the book. Poor baby. We've got Xaden Ryerson.
Like, boo, but cute.
Right. Boo. I'm not even hiding it. He's hot. We know something's gonna happen.
This is a fictional world. We can do what we want.
Yeah. We've got Dane Atos, who's also hot.
He is
extremely protective of Violet.
He is, which is a positive trait in theory.
It is. It is. He's so. We'll get into this a little bit more later. Everyone just really hard underestimates Violet with good reason, I might add.
Oh yeah.
However, she's just such a badass. It's great. We've got General Melgren, who's like the lead of the college, I think.
I think he's the lead of the army.
Of the army, okay.
I think so, yeah.
We have Professor Markham, who's a scribe, who was supposed to be, I mean, Violet trained with him to be a scribe her whole life before the change of plans.
I think he's like the big wig.
Yeah.
Like he's the head scribe. He's like the General Melgren of the scribes.
Yeah. Professor DeVera, who does battle briefs, who is very excited to have Violet because Violet's scribe mind brings a new strength to the Riders Quadrant.
Yeah, I think they're used to brute force, not strategic intelligence, which I find, so this is just a tidbit for me that I thought was really interesting. They talk about how Brennan was really good at strategy and how Violet's like, I'm not going to be good at that. You're a scribe. Like, you're going to be 10 times better than your brother at strategy. There's no way. But anyhow, that's like what Brennan was known for.
We have Professor Emeterio, who runs the hand-to-hand aspect of training. Tynan, another first year. Tynan?
Tynan.
And Imogen, pink-haired.
Honestly, I love the pink hair.
I love
that's the fun part of this like section. I think they mentioned on it too. Like it's like less like you basically if you survive you can do what you want.
It's like Divergent. It's like the Dauntless. Yes. It's like the Dauntless faction. The Dragon Riders are essentially Dauntless, but with dragons.
With dragons.
Yeah. All right. So those are all of our characters. And with that, it's time for section superlatives. Section superlatives.
Woo!
Woo! So we are adding a new superlative that we will be starting with for Fourth Wing, and that is section MVP.
MVP? I don't know why I keep repeating things back like
what? That's my Schmidt voice. Nick Miller.
I do love Schmidt dearly, so maybe that's why. Ooh, okay.
MVP. We discussed these beforehand this time, so it's not just like a wild.
Organized. Look at us go.
We have crowned Violet Sorrengail as our MVP.
She deserves it deeply.
She does. I think this is where we can talk about how everyone underestimates her a little bit.
100%.
Everyone, except her mother, actually.
Interestingly, yeah.
Interestingly enough, Violet deals with a lot of Violet's gonna break, Violet's gonna die, she's so fragile. And like, while that is physically true, she is super smart. She has a book with her that tells her how to kill people, apparently. I don't know if we've seen that yet, but yeah. It's mentioned in the first chapter. She has a poison book. And she's like not playing the victim at all. She's like gets annoyed at Dane for wanting to usher her back. She gets annoyed at Mira for being like, Violet can't do this. Violet's like, no, I'm gonna do it.
She talks about, or I guess in theory this is from her perspective, but her mom is like, she is used to being in constant pain, she'll be fine.
Yeah.
And she's like, that is the only compliment my mom has ever given me.
Yes, chapter 1, Violet Sorrengail is like, listen, Mira, this Violet deals with more pain in a morning than you do in an entire month or something like that.
Yeah, it's really interesting the way that she like words it. It's like she will be fine. I almost think she views it as like her going to the scribe quadrant is an actual waste of her potential.
Yeah, almost. And like honestly, I can see that.
Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah.
I could see where she could have been a good healer. I think that maybe that could have been an option, but I don't think
I think she would have been wasted as a scribe.
She would have been wasted as a scribe. I think she could have been in any other area and probably would have been okay. I think she's just like, we are writers.
Yeah.
You're going there.
Yeah. And Violet, she pulls that move with Jack on the parapet.
Yeah.
I think this was a stupid decision. She does not kill him.
At least cut off his manhood. Like, at minimum. This man tried to kill you. She does say, I think, she's like, I can't kill him from this angle. I can only wound him.
Yeah.
Which will make him more angry.
Right. So again, she's logical. Smart. She's smart.
Yeah. I still think I would have killed him. Yeah. And he tried to kill me. But
side note for podcast listeners, I'm holding up the can of beer that I'm holding. It is Civil Life's The Angel and the Sword. It's an ESB, and I brought it back home to New Jersey from St. Louis on my recent trip. So I'm sitting here drinking my STL beer.
Little taste of home. If we're talking about beers, if we're taking a little tidbit, I'm originally from Oklahoma. I don't know if I've ever mentioned that. But I had my college roommates come and visit me, and I had them bring back this beer, and I'm having multiple tonight. But I usually ration these. This is a big deal, but it's a little tornado because Oklahoma. If you've seen anything about it in the recent movies, lots of tornadoes.
A lot of tornadoes. Stuff. My worst nightmare.
It really is.
So, superlative number 2, craziest thing to happen.
All of the parapet. All of that. Just like the storms, Dylan just absolutely plunging to his... Naming a character that immediately dies is such an author move. Like, author power move to me.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like this nameless, faceless, like, oh, someone fell and screamed. No, like, a person that we've interacted with, had a conversation, saw them interact with their family.
Had the backstory, too.
Yeah, like, seemed like it was probably going to be, like, a main character. Immediately dies. Yeah. He's like, oh, I remember reading this first time and being like, oh no.
Yeah.
No one's safe.
No one's safe. Jack Barlow getting on the parapet and throwing another cadet or candidate off the parapet immediately.
Nightmare fuel. I understand that, like, this person didn't have anything. If I'm falling, you're coming with me.
Yeah.
I am pulling you down with me. Like, I may not have a choice of living. Like, I think that candidate probably tried to save themselves. They should have just pulled
Jack down with them. Agreed.
Yeah. I would say the Lord.
If you can't tell, we don't like Jack.
He's not supposed to be likable. I also think he's described as, like, relatively attractive, but he's, like, the ugly attractive.
Yeah.
Because he's described as, like, blonde, like, big, burly, like, fit blonde person. So in theory, I think everyone in this novel is supposed to be relatively attractive. I think that's like I think to be a writer, that like you have to be pretty.
Yeah, just like Dauntless. I say it again. Everyone in Dauntless is also attractive.
I think that's kind of the point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So. And then drama queen. I immediately chose Dane.
I would say Dane or Mira, but I think Mira is not a drama queen. I think she just I would say Dane, and just his like. It's hard to say, especially at this point, because like I also think if I had been at this like college, whatever, and then someone that I like knew was not supposed to be there suddenly appears, and I know that all of their joints just don't work, I'd also be like, what?
Yes, absolutely. However, his insistence after that first interaction where she's like, I am okay with this. I want to be here. Whatever, like, however it happened, I want to be here. And also, even if I didn't want to be here, if I try to escape, I will just be dragged back here. So stop trying. I would be like, okay. I would still stick with that person and check in on them and try to help them. But I would stop being like, you're gonna die. I need to take you away from here.
His savior complex, like his like superhero complex, whatever you want to call it, is very apparent incredibly immediately. Like he's very like I think there's like just from like I guess perspective, I know a lot of people that went into the military. There's like different reasons that people go into it. Some want power, Jack Barlow. Some go in for that like protective nature, and I think that's his family was also historical. His father is also in the military. I think I don't know if we talk about him. I don't know if he's mentioned. It's not
yet. But, I mean, childhood friends. Like the parents moved around a lot military wise together.
Yeah, his dad is her mom's like assistant, essentially, like the person right next to them. So they've been childhood friends. So like it's also a legacy thing. But I think he went in for like protective reasons, and that shows so strongly.
So strongly. My goodness. Yeah. So yeah, drama queen is Dane Atos.
It is. It is Dane. I like Dane. I will say, I like Dane. I know you don't. I like Dane in this section. I will say, I like Dane in here.
I think we've talked about this where like with Tamlin, I immediately was like, absolutely not. And like a lot of people, rightfully so, were like, oh, Tamlin. And I was just like over here in my little judgmental corner being like, absolutely not. I immediately with Dane, I was like, absolutely not. And like, he's not truly, not actually being the worst. He's just being protective. You're right.
He is. I do like a protective person. That is something that I like. Not everyone does. So that is like a quality that I like in people. I don't like a quality of people that don't listen. I tried to keep into account. I truly cannot imagine like the pure panic of like seeing this person, like they cross this parapet, they're already injured. The first thing you do, already injured.
But she's not dead.
She is not dead,
Other people
which
died.
is impressive. And I do think that he should give her more credit than what she's given. I do think she like mentions that like Jane isn't the same. Like definitely, which if you've known anyone that has gone into boot camp and come back out, they are not the same as when they went in.
Well, he in theory has gone through an entire year of watching everyone die, essentially.
Yeah.
So
I think he's got a lot of trauma to really process through. There is noticeably a lack of therapy.
Therapy never exists.
Therapy is not even a thing that exists in this world.
No.
Not even close.
No.
We should have a who needs therapy section, and it's all of them.
It's all of them.
That's the daddy issues of this book.
Yeah.
Who needs therapy? All of them.
All of them. So yeah, I think those are our chapter section superlatives. We'll definitely see if we can think of any more fun ones. And if you are listening or watching and you have a superlative, mention in the comments. We want some we'd like some audience interaction. So
pretty please. Also, it's fun to have different ideas from people. You may notice different things that we don't.
Yes.
So
I think it's time for a new segment that we're introducing here because I talk my butt off all the time. And that is Colleen's Corner, which we're workshopping the name. I like Colleen's Corner.
I also think I like the alliteration.
Yeah.
A lot. I love the little Colleen Corner. So it was like do with it what you want. Taking that and running with it. So I think it's not gonna be anything consistent. It's just gonna be kind of what I observed or like what I find interesting in the chapter. I will say it will probably almost always be some sort of character interaction. For me, that is the most interesting part of a novel is how like how socially this works. So we talked about this a little bit. I think I want to talk about the family unit because that is the first thing that we see is immediate yelling.
Yes.
And how normal it is to Violet. Like it's Mira yelling at her mom and her being like, "Oh, Mira's home." Like that's a very normal and regular part of their life. Like that's such an interesting introductory and I think very telling family dynamic that I think makes the whole like mom will drag me back by my braid kind of situation.
You really believe it.
Yeah, well, especially because like that's also all she has left at this point. Like her entire family, like we don't hear about grandparents on either side. We don't hear about aunts and uncles. We literally only have Mira and her mother, and then there was Brennan, who died like 3 years ago, I think, or was it 5? I think it's 5 because her dad died like 2 years ago. It's been a bit at this point. It's also pretty apparent that she, like Violet, was definitely closer to her father. Also complicated. Like, there's this whole like dynamic of like she's closer to her father and was her father's favorite, but Mira and Brennan. It's like interesting. Brennan, overall golden child favorite of both parents.
Yeah.
Mira was her mom's favorite. Violet with her dad's like, regardless of, so incredibly unhealthy. It's so incredibly unhealthy.
Yeah, parents playing favorites is never a good thing.
No, and like there's just so many instances where it seems like, I don't know, it's a little more of a later thing, I guess. But like very clearly how they functioned as a family unit was just really dysfunctional.
Mm-hmm.
But like that she's just like, that's normal. Like
Yeah.
totally fine.
I wonder if any of it had to do, I mean, I'm sure it did a little bit with I mean, you hear General Sorrengail be like, "You're Sorrengail, you have to be a dragon rider."
Yeah,
But
my children are writers. So I think it's like, it's
yeah,
in the book, it's like italicized, my children.
but her dad was a scribe.
Which is so, and she does mention that, and like her mother does soften, and she's like, I loved your father, but he's dead.
Mm-hmm.
Like at one point, like I think Nero was like, this is not what dad wanted.
Yeah.
And she was like, your father is dead, he doesn't get to make choices. He like isn't gonna make choices anymore. He does not care.
Yeah.
Like his soul's gone to Malik or whatever, like,
yeah,
which that's also interesting.
It's
They're,
a
like,
thing that we'll have to talk
God.
about in the next chapter when we get a little bit more
more into it. Yeah, they have like a religious structure that is interesting. That's like not really ever explained. It just is.
There's just rules.
Yeah, like it's interesting. So it's mostly just like the family dynamic. I think eventually we'll get into more like interpersonal. I mean, even if we really want to get into it, I mean, I think Dane is kind of family-ish, but that like dynamic of like childhood best friend, but like kind of crush playful thing to this like commanding officer.
Right.
Like I think how that's gonna play out is really interesting because like what I know of like, you know, childhood best friends, if they were my commanding officer and they told me to do something, I would laugh in their face. I would never take it seriously. So I think that will be interesting. Moving forward, I don't have a whole lot more. We don't get a whole lot, but just like I just thought it was so interesting as an opening thing of her being like, "Man, I gotta go to this parapet. Mira's here."
Woo!
She was like, familiar voice yelling, just how all that functions and how her mother is and how I think that's going to affect Violet and her choices.
What do you think that has to do with Violet's? How do you think the family dynamic has played into Violet's determination and like seriously like genuine want to be right? Like she has internalized her mother's demands and is like, I want to be here whether I die or not.
Okay, I'm gonna equate this to the most like I clearly grew up in Oklahoma thing that I can think of right now. But I think it's kind of like if you grew up in a household where like your mom went to a college, your brother went to this college, your sister went to this college, dad maybe went to a different one, but the rest of them, like you grew up, you watched all the football games, you watched all this stuff. Even if you were like maybe thinking about going to this other one, you really probably in the back of your mind somewhere, like this is what's been drilled into you. It's like this has value, and this is what the family does. Like you want to be one of those legacy people.
Think that it gave her permission? It helped her give herself permission to want to pursue something that seemed so wildly out of reach?
I take it more as like a character trait of Violet of just being so incredibly stubborn. I think that's a part that she inherited from her family of just being like, I don't care. Like if you tell her no, she's going to do it because to prove you wrong. Like I think it's more like that trait. Like, and I don't, and that also kind of seemed like even in her father. Like I think that was across. I think that's kind of what her mom seemed to like in her dad. But that's a whole other thing. But like that seems to be across the board a thing of like you tell me no, I'm going to pursue it harder. Like in a weird way, I think she's going to pursue being a writer so much harder than she ever would have pursued being a scribe.
Because everyone is constantly telling her that she can't do it.
Yeah, like she is fueled by anger and rage immediately. So I think that's like a character like clearly Mira is also fueled by like it's very they remind me of like a large like Italian family that just kind of all yells at each other, and that's just kind of like how they interact. Like you know that they care for each other and like all of those things, and I do think there is care there. I do think the grief of both of the family members passing is definitely a big shadow, and I think it's changed their dynamic a lot. And I do definitely think that Violet very much has that like younger sibling. You can know anything about like sibling, like oldest, middle, younger.
Right here.
I'm the oldest, so can't relate. But she's she's the youngest, and she has that like left behind feeling a lot of like being alone and being behind and like kind of having to fight for that her own.
Yeah.
Um,
Actually, now that you say that, I don't know that I necessarily. Sometimes, I mean, most of the time when I'm reading, I kind of just like leave my brain behind. I've been better about taking notes and stuff for the podcast and like,
yeah,
but I still leave part of my brain behind. But like, no, now that you say that, as a youngest child, I am also fueled by if you tell me I can't do something, I will do it. And I will shove it in your stupid face.
I think it's also common for older siblings, but in like a different way. But I think the younger, like, I think the bratting element that, like, I think sometimes comes across with Violet. I don't think Violet is a brat, but I think there's that, like, there's like that bratty thing of like, I'm gonna do it anyway.
Yes.
Like that, like, feisty brattiness definitely comes from, it's less calculated.
Yeah, it's not like a lead. It's not from like a leader position where it's like, I have to do it. I'm gonna do it anyways. It's like well, you just said I couldn't do something, so I'm gonna do it, and like you can eat your words when I'm done. Like,
think of like a really interesting, maybe not an example of that, but like so Brennan, right? Like he was like the strategic one, like that, like whole like really smart. Like that's how he did the like I'm gonna do it thing. He's like I'm gonna fight through it. I'm gonna strategically do all of this stuff. Violet's just like, watch me. Yeah. In like a not in an intimidating way, not yet. Anyway, I mean she gets there, I think eventually, but she definitely has this. Even like crossing the parapet, like I think for her it was like crossing over that. She's like, okay, like it's also like a survival thing of like, oh gosh, we're gonna get into cult dynamics, these kinds of things. You're thrown into a situation like even like Stockholm syndrome almost where you're like, I have to survive. I don't have a choice. So either I accept or die.
Yeah.
Like you just kind of accept it and you move through. Like she doesn't have a choice. Like she's like, even like, I know like Dane's like, we'll get you to the scribe quadrant. Like we'll figure it out. I really don't know if they would let her. Like she did the thing.
Yeah.
Like she's on the roll. She is on the roll. She's enlisted at this point. Yeah. She crossed it. Like I think the moment that
the parapet, that's it.
Yeah, like the moment she stepped foot on it, I think, because she gave the name at the beginning. She stepped foot on it. I think from that point on, you either die or you're going. Like I think if she would have somehow found a way to do it before she stepped foot on the parapet, I think maybe they would have been like, okay, yep, you're here. We're gonna keep you. Whatever. I don't think post that they would let her. If it's like literally in the other military. Yeah. I don't think they're gonna let her leave.
No, I agree. Yeah. Very cool. Well, thanks, Colleen. Colleen's Corner.
It's a little all over the place, but it's fun.
It was great.
Yeah.
I think that leaves us just our deep dive discussion. We did cover a whole lot already, but I wanted to bring deep dive discussion.
Yeah, there's so much with this. Like we were talking about this in terms of like the first 5 chapters of this has so like we're just kind of thrown into it, right? Like we're there with Violet, we're thrown into it, and you just kind of like I don't know. I think Sarah J. Maas is known for her kind of like you're thrown certain ones are like you're thrown into it. Not I feel like this is so much more of a you're thrown in and you just roll.
Yeah.
With it. Like it's explained well and you don't feel like lost, but you're there.
Yeah, you're like very much. I'd like to point out that the first 5 chapters is literally 67 pages, which I don't think I processed that when I was like, yeah, let's do the first 5 chapters. It's 67 pages. It's a lot. Yeah. I mean, a lot happens. And it's like action from page 1. Like you start and immediately.
Well, so we talked. Do you want to read the first like opening line, or do you want me to do it?
Yeah. I'll do this and you do the other one.
Okay, because the opening line, like this is how I remember when I read this, and this is like the opening thing. I would say if you know anything about this book, this is the line that you've heard.
Yeah.
Like on social media, this is like the main.
Yes. So we go. All of the chapters have a little blurb at the top that give you a little bit of information about the world that we're in, right? And
they're very important.
And they're very important. So yeah, keep track of them. And the first one is chapter 1, A dragon without its rider is a tragedy. A rider without their dragon is dead. Article 1, Section 1, the Dragon Riders Codex.
Mm-hmm.
It just leaves you with that, and you're just like, oh.
That's like, which I guess also that, and then which I forgot, I'm looking at this now, but it's also transcribed.
Yeah. Oh,
which is
let's
also
read
wild.
that. Let's read that. So this also like this is not spoilers because it's literally right there in the book. Spoiler, it's very important.
It is, and we don't fully know why yet.
We don't know why. Like clear, like
important.
truly, no one knows why it's important, but we all know that it's important. And so the opener is the following text has been faithfully transcribed from Navarian into the modern language by Jacinia Neilwart, curator of the Scribe Quadrant at Basgiath War College. All events are true, and names have been preserved to honor the courage of those fallen. May their souls be commended to Malak.
Who's fallen? Who's fallen? I mean, Dylan did. Dylan kept his name. Well, God bless him.
Yeah, we know that Dylan fell. But also, the following text has been faithfully transcribed from Navarian into the modern language, which means that if that's true, then this is a first-hand account given, and if it's transcribed, we have no way of knowing if any of it's actually true.
Well, but also, like, what's the modern language?
Yeah, what is the modern language? What does that mean?
Yeah, like, so, what do you mean Navarian's not spoken?
Is this
anymore?
History? Like, are we reading history right now?
Yeah, we have no clue. Like, we don't know who is Jacinia.
Yeah, who is Jacinia?
At this point, not
I read that Jacinia the first go around, and it just left my mind.
I will say this is definitely a book that rereading it, you see, I think maybe the brilliance of it so much more on the second read.
Yeah.
At least, which I think I have read this twice. I think this is my third time. But I read them so close together, like back to back, that I don't think I like really like. Again, also we talked about this, but like reading it for the podcast is very different.
Yes.
I highly recommend reading a book, maybe not for a podcast, but like reading it for a discussion element because you really do get so much more.
You pay attention more. Yeah. So yeah, chapter 1, Dragon without its rider is a tragedy. A rider without it, the dragon is dead, and like then you open up on Conscription Day is always the deadliest, and it's just like, oh, so this is literally just brutal death the whole way through.
The whole like first section is like death.
Yeah.
Like it mentions death like 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
Section of like a couple of sentences.
It does. You get like the statistics too that the Dragon Riders quadrant is the deadliest quadrant. People just die all the time.
And so I remember thinking when I read this the first time, I'm like, then why would you go?
Right.
And the process that you get a dragon.
Yeah.
And magic.
So yeah.
100%. I would try to go prepared. I think some of these people definitely go in. Like I feel like as conscripts, I do feel like some people maybe go in, like they're choosing, they're not conscripts, they choose to go in there outside of the people that are forced. I feel like maybe if they know they want to go here, they should be more prepared.
I agree.
That, and so at the beginning of chapter 5, this is like the little like, I don't know, I'm picturing this as like a little scrapbook, and this is just like a little cutout section that's like pasted in here. I know it's probably not what it is, but it says, knowing I am in direct disagreement with General Melgren's orders, I am officially objecting to the plan set forth in today's briefing. It is not this general's opinion that the children of the rebellion's leaders should be forced to witness their parents' executions. No child should watch their parent be put to death. The Tirish Rebellion, an official brief for King Tari, who we've not really talked about. I don't think we know much about him. We're assuming he's the king.
The king of Navarre. Yep.
By General Violet Sorrengail. I think this is really fascinating, and I think you can definitely tell it was written by a mother.
Yeah.
Like in a positive way, but like I also, which I don't know if you know that at this point, apparently all the children had to watch their parents be executed, which seems insane to me.
And then they all got their rebellion relics from the dragon as well.
Oh, that executed their parents. Yeah. Yes, which is kind of wild. The like tattoo is like a marked, like it like magically marked them.
Yeah, with its fire.
Which is that like GPS? Like, why did it mark them?
Yeah. I think
Like, that's
it's
also
like I believe it's like the traditional when you have a establishment that is
like you
extreme,
brand a pirate.
right, you brand them so that people know who they
Gotcha.
are. But that explains Xaden's why he would want to kill Violet is because yeah, sure his dad killed Brennan, but he was made to sit and watch his father executed by General Sorrengail.
But also assuming that like none of these people know. I mean, if this is like an official brief between a king and a general, this is not like it's public knowledge.
Yeah, so
Like
no
we're
one knows
getting
that she was like hesitant.
like Violet probably doesn't even know
Yeah.
any of this information. Like this is very much like a private correspondent thing. I also think it's really interesting that we get that so early.
Yeah.
Like before we really even know anything about the
Right.
rebellion
We
that
don't
much and like
technically really know everything that's happened or anything like that. We just get that tidbit.
no. Yeah, so I think it's really interesting and I think it gives a lot of um it makes Lilith I think more human and I also think it makes Mira and I think everyone assumes that Mira and Brennan and Violet have their like human side from their father, but I don't think that's true. I do think it comes also from their mother.
I think so. I think she's a woman
Just
who's
like
had to make a lot of tough decisions. She is a general
in general.
in
Yeah.
an army that is actively at war.
Mm-hmm. To
Um,
protect their civilians
Her
and
son
yeah.
died because of that war, or I guess it was a
Yeah.
rebellion, one of the wars. And yeah, no, she's a mother and she's trying the best she can. It doesn't mean that she's doing a good job, but she's trying the best. She's doing the best that she knows how to do.
Yes. I agree.
Yeah.
Bless her soul.
Yep. I also think there is a quote on page 41 that I'll read that I thought was really interesting because we know that Lilith's power is storm wielding. Okay, so the quote is Violet Sorrengail, I answer as thunder cracks above me. The sound oddly comforting. I've always loved the nights where storms beat against the fortress window, both illuminating and throwing the shadows over the books I curled up with. Though this downpour might just cost me my life. That is when she's about to cross the parapet and it starts storming. Um, so Violet Sorrengail does find storms comforting, and the storm wielding is her mother's signet. So there is something there.
There's definitely like yeah, like a comfort to that. Which also like that's what I think lends to that whole like if you're a reader, there's nothing better than like a stormy day reading a good book. Like it's just
Disagree. No, I'm kidding. I like a rainy day for reading. We've said this before. I'm like very scared of storms.
it's fair. I like storms.
But I do like a nice, like gloomy, melancholy, misty, rainy day for like snuggling up and reading. It's great.
I think it's also like I feel like it's a nod both to her mother storms and a nod back to that like
Yeah, she's a
Violet's a
reader.
reader.
Hmm.
Yeah. She's like one of those jocks that also reads
Yeah.
now. You know what I mean? Like it's like the people who do the like nerdy workouts in the gym.
Yeah.
That's Violet.
Sad to say, not me. But if I ever want to ride a dragon, I guess I better get to the gym.
Honestly, work on thigh muscles.
Yeah,
Figure it out.
figure it out. Gotta do it. Let's see. We have discussed so much in depth, but I still feel like there's so much more.
There's yeah, I personally because again I read too fast. I'm like trying to remember and like not spoil too much. But yeah, there's just I think the like the excitement of like being in this world is so interesting. I would not want to live in this world because I don't
No.
want to go to war college.
Mm-mm.
I do want dragons though. So like this is not like the fantasy. I mean, we know again if you're new, the fantasy world I want to live in is the Fast and Furious universe. But if you're not new, this is a new one. But like that's always a question I think when you read, especially fantasy. I would not want to live in this world. I would not survive. I would have fallen off on the parapet.
Honestly, yeah. I'm so clumsy. That sounds like
Well, between the clumsiness and the sparring ring, I have zero. I can't fight. I could probably get to the history part
yes.
more than likely. Like I could probably get to like the history and the battles and like the strategy element, maybe.
Honestly, I couldn't even get through that.
like, I mean, I got through college, I got the master's degree, but like, I don't want to do it again. Like,
Yeah.
And maybe that's part of it. If you would have asked, and maybe that's what I need to keep in mind. If you asked 20-year-old me when they're coming into this, absolutely, I could have conquered this immediately.
Yeah.
Almost 30-year-old me, absolutely not.
Yeah.
Like, I'm good.
That's fair. Yeah, I'm so excited that we're starting Fourth Wing. It's like ACOTAR was just a whole different ballgame because I've read it so many times. And when we are going to alternate, back and forth. So when we get back to the world of ACOTAR, it's going to be like it's going to be a huge mind shift for me. But coming into Fourth Wing, I've read it. I've seen the theories online. Colleen and I have discussed them at length as well, but like it truly feels like the first time that I'm reading this right now. So I'm really excited.
There's an excitement to this that I agree that I didn't really have with, again, I've read ACOTAR a lot. This one's like a newer series. I think I found this like a year or two ago with most people.
Yeah.
I'm excited. I do know that a lot of people have differing opinions about whether they like Fourth Wing or ACOTAR. I'm in a camp that I love both for different reasons.
Same. I really like dragons.
I am planning on getting a dragon tattoo at some point. I'm very excited.
Do you want to get matching dragon tattoos?
Absolutely.
You heard it here first, folks.
Dragons. I was gonna say a dragon tattoo, like regardless, is always cool.
Yeah.
But yes, so I love dragons. I love like fantasy and things. I feel like this one has kind of like it's not set in modern day, but I think it has more of like a modern day fantasy flavor.
Yeah.
To it, and I would say ACOTAR has like a more traditional fantasy flavor to it. So if you're not an ACOTAR person, maybe you'll like Fourth Wing. You never know. Or you can get like some love both for different reasons.
For different reasons. So, all right. I think that brings us to the end. We don't have a lot to go on in terms of, I really wanted to do like an unhinged theory section, but I don't think we have enough yet to do that.
No.
So, all right.
We can get there though.
We're gonna get there, and when I say unhinged theory, get ready. I'm ready. It's gonna be fun. We'll probably also, if you enjoyed our bonus episodes with special guests Frank and Colleen, Frank and Allie, we are probably planning on doing more bonus episodes with them. Hopefully we can get the four of us together.
I don't know if they've read this book, so we need to get them to read it. I don't think Frank has. I don't know if Allie has or not.
Frank is our social media person now, Frank. We love you, Frank.
Frank.
He did say that he bought the book, so he will read it.
Good. Yes. I think he's gonna like it. I'm excited for him. But
all right, and with that, signing off on our season 2, episode 1. This was Book Witches with the B. Fourth Wing. We're going to be doing Fourth Wing chapters 6 through 10 on the next episode. That is Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. So pick up the book. I got mine from the public library, Mayapack Public Library. I'm sure you can find them in used bookstores, or you could go to Barnes & Nobles and get one. But
maybe a local bookstore?
Yeah, maybe a local bookstore. But go and pick up a copy and read along with us and join us. Join us. Hi, me again. I am here to let you all know where to find us. You can find us on Instagram at BookWitchesPod. You can find us on Spotify at BookWitches with a B. You can find us on YouTube at BookWitches with a B, and you can find us on TikTok at BookWitchesPod. All of this information is also going to be listed below our episode, and it's going to be listed in the ending credits if you're watching along with us in the videos. We'll catch you guys soon.